Hey, welcome back to the Brett Bradley Show. We have Jason Plummer and Paula Bradshaw here to continue to talk about issues that matter to Southern Illinois. Paula, we'll go to you first. Obamacare, you mentioned you were in favor of the single-payer plan last debate. You guys didn't really touch upon Dodd-Frank. Would you consider those two legislations a failure of policy by Barack Obama?
Absolutely. I think that the giveaway to the health insurance companies that they call Obamacare was written actually by the Heritage Foundation back in the 90s. First, it was pushed by Republicans, including Mitt Romney, but then that didn't go very far, so they switched to the Democrats pushing it. I think it's outrageous. I think it's, this is the first time ever in the United States history that people have been forced, everybody has been forced to buy a private product from a private health insurance. So yes, I would be very much in favor of repealing Obamacare. And as for Dodd-Frank, here's the pretense. Here's the nonsense we're being told. We're being told that no laws were broken in the Wall Street shenanigans. We are being told that the whole credit default swap thing was not illegal. We're being told that the robo-signing of mortgage documents was not illegal. We're being told that fraud is not illegal, that perjury is not illegal. These are lies. These are lies. These people broke the law. Under Reagan, back in the 80s, when I mentioned that they deregulated savings and loans and they went on a crime spree, 1,200 big-time bankers went to prison back in the 80s. How many bankers have gone to prison this time? I'm not counting Bernie Madoff. That was different. There's been none, including John Corzine, who stole $1.2 billion from his customers' segregated accounts, and they're saying that's not against the law. They're lying.
Jason?
Yeah, I mean, Paul and I both agree that the Dodd-Frank is bad, and we both agree that Obamacare is bad. It's interesting that we're both here talking about that because the third person in this race, Bill Enyart, he likes Dodd-Frank. He likes Obamacare. He thinks those are good things, and I think that says a lot. If I liked Obamacare and I liked Dodd-Frank, I wouldn't be showing up to debate or talk about those issues either. I can tell you that much. But here I am talking about them because those are bad public policies. They're bad public policies that were foisted on the American people by this administration. And when I go to Washington, D.C., I'm going to fight tooth and nail to repeal those and bring forth solid policies, like Paul alluded to, that held people responsible for some of the problems and some of the crimes that did take place during the financial meltdown. That's going to make sure that we do provide the quality health care, the access to the health care, and the type of health care that we need for all Americans. So, I think Dodd-Frank's bad. I think Obamacare is bad. Paula agrees. Bill Enyart disagrees.
Okay, Mr. Plummer, you stated you did not entirely support the Paul Ryan Medicare plan. We're going to shift a little bit to entitlements here. You hinted that you liked the Governor Romney plan a lot better than the Ryan plan, although they're running together, but Romney has his own plan. What made you like the Romney plan more than the Ryan plan?
Well, I think that there were some change. I mean, there were changes in some of the tax implications of it. And, people need to keep in mind also that the Ryan plan is a plan that has changed over the course of 3 or 4 years as there's been more input and talk about it. And he's running for vice president now, but they're not running under the Ryan plan. They're running under the Romney plan, which I think stabilizes Medicare at a quicker pace instead of going out to 2040. It stabilizes Medicare as well as some of the entitlement programs quicker, and it brings tax policy changes to the table that the Ryan plan did not bring to the table. These problems that we're facing right now, like I said just a few minutes ago, they're not Republican problems, they're not Democrat problems, they're math problems. And if you look at our spending right now, the United States federal government is going to spend $3.5 trillion this year. $2.5 trillion of the $3.5 trillion goes to the major entitlement programs and interest on the debt, which leaves $1 trillion for everything else the federal government does. Be that the military, the CIA, the FBI, education spending, infrastructure spending, you name it, the energy bill, transportation bill, farm bill, $1 trillion. But our deficit's going to be $1.2 to $1.4 trillion, which means we could stop every function of the federal government and still run a deficit this year. We have serious problems. We need to get those problems under control. I think that plan does that.
You like the Paul Ryan plan, or pardon me, you like the Governor Romney plan?
I gotta be honest with you. I haven't paid attention to those two plans.
Now, what plan would you do to save Medicare?
I'm for Medicare for all. I'm
the single payer system.
The single payer system, right?
Well, now explain that a little bit. If you win Congress,
well, actually, in 1965, when Congress passed the Medicare law, it was for people over 65 years old. And I heard a woman speaking who said that at the time they thought that what they were going to do was decrease the age by 10 years every few years or so until everybody in the country was covered. In other words, make it for people 55 and older than 45 and older than 30, and sooner or later everybody would be covered. And the our healthcare system now wastes 30% of every healthcare dollar on administration costs, overhead, insurance company rake-offs, paperwork, busy work. Whereas Medicare has a 4% overhead. So if we switch to Medicare for all, we would be saving billions of dollars. And that would be, actually would help our small businesses, because they would no longer have to struggle to provide insurance for their employees because everybody in the country would be covered.
Was this government plan or private insurance plan?
It's a government plan.
Government
the private
plan.
insurance
Okay.
are the ones that take 30%.
Okay.
The government takes 4%.
Just clarifying there. Okay. Well, let's go to Social Security. Paula, what would you do to fix Social Security? Some of the tougher options are ending the cap, raising the age, cutting benefits. Those are just 3 of the tougher options I mentioned. What would you do to fix Social Security, or you would advocate to fix Social Security?
Well, Social Security isn't really broken. There's $2 trillion in the trust fund, and if you're going to say the United States government is going to default on their obligations, then you're talking about really big problems.
I didn't say that, but in 2027.
No, I'm saying there
okay.
are people that are saying
2027, the money's going to run out. That's
Well, here's the thing. For the first 50 years of Social Security, it was a pay-as-you-go system from 1935 to 1985. And the current workers paid for the retirees, their parents, basically, their parents and grandparents, in return for knowing that when they retired, their children would take care of them or everybody's children. Now, in 1985, Ronald Reagan said that there was so many baby boomers that the baby boomers and only the baby boomers had to prepay their retirement and put it into a trust fund. So that's when they raised the Social Security taxes, the payroll taxes on people, and they put it into this trust fund to pay for the baby boomers and only the baby boomers. Okay, guess what? The baby boomers are just starting to retire right now. And all of a sudden they're screaming that there's no money. The trust fund was meant to run out when the baby boomers died, and I hate to tell you this, but by 2033, a whole bunch of them will be dead. So that there will be no problem. The other thing is that they say there's not enough workers to pay for the retirees. Back in the 50s, when it was pay-as-you-go, every 100 workers paid for 98 dependents, all those baby boomer children plus their parents. Wait, I have one more thing to say. Absolutely raise the cap. Why are only people making less than $110,000 paying for the entire Social Security? No, raise the cap. Have it, just everybody pays. Everybody's equal. That's right.
Okay, real quick. Now, would you keep the 15.3% tax if you in the cap?
I think it's 13%, isn't it?
15.3% if you're a businessman, 13% if you're working for a business.
Well, if you raise the cap, I actually believe that you wouldn't have to have such high taxes. The taxes were raised because Reagan said that the baby boomers had to prepay their retirement.
So in the cap. Jason, what would you do to fix Social Security, or you would advocate?
Well, I mean, these are serious math problems, and just the actuarial tables show that the system is broke. We've got to get that under control. I come from the business world where, I think 2 things that may have made this country great is the rule of law and property rights. And what goes right along with that is a contract. And as a businessman, you make deals and contracts and agreements all the time, and you're only as good as your word. And the American people, by way of the government, has made a lot of promises to a lot of people. I think a promise made is a promise kept, so we've got to ensure that we have programs that are there to provide the benefits that we've promised to various people. That being said, going forward, there is a serious problem in terms of the math, and the trust fund that was alluded to earlier has been raided, so that money's not necessarily sitting there. There are IOUs sitting there that eventually have to be paid, and we have a system right now that is actually probably going to go bankrupt far sooner than the 2033 that was alluded to earlier. And we need to get that under control. I think we need to bring some reforms back. When the Social Security program was created, it wasn't indexed. There were just a lot of problems that need to be addressed.
Now, just a second, Paul. What solutions are you advocating for?
Well, you have to index. You have to index the program. You've got to make sure that when folks are paying into the program, that money isn't, like in the state of Illinois, when something goes to the general fund, or when someone goes to another fund, it eventually gets all wiped into the general fund. We need to make sure that that money is set aside. We need to make sure that those benefits are going to be there for the voters.
Paula?
I would just say that if you feel that the federal government is going to default upon its contracts, upon that trust fund, then we should go back to the system we had for the first 50 years of pay-as-you-go.
Okay, let's go to a little bit of welfare, okay? Welfare. Paul, this is for you. Would you support block granting Medicaid to the states?
I'm for single payer health care. That would get rid of Medicare and Medicaid, as well as Aetna and, all these other health insurance companies. So that is irrelevant. As far as welfare goes, I am for full employment. I am for making it possible for every person that wants a job to have a job. On the other hand, I am for paid maternity leave, which is what a whole lot of welfare is. It's paying women to take care of their children. So I guess you could call that welfare, but it's not. It's an investment by society into its citizens, into its children, into the children that everyone says they care about so much. And yet we are one of only 3 countries in the world, and the other 2 are Swaziland and Papua New Guinea, that doesn't provide paid maternity leave for its new mothers. I mean, that's what I would go for, and also, like I said, single payer system.
Okay.
And full employment.
Would you block grant Medicaid to the states? Welfare reform was a huge deal in 1996. Would you block grant it?
Well, welfare reform was a huge deal in '96, and it was good to see President Clinton finally come aboard with the Republican Congress in that regard, because what it did was it got a lot of folks. We talk about a lot of these different programs, food stamps, welfare, all these different things, and there's not an American out there that doesn't think we don't need to help people that are in tough circumstances. But one thing we also need to do is we have the moral imperative to make sure that when we go out there, we provide these people the opportunity to succeed in life, to have the wherewithal and to have the self-fulfillment of making a paycheck, of getting a raise, of getting a promotion at work, and providing for their families. And what the welfare reform of '96 did was it got a lot of folks off the welfare rolls into jobs so that they could provide for their families. There was a work function requirement within welfare, and this administration right now is taking the work requirement out of welfare, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. In terms of block grants, as I said earlier in this discussion, I absolutely believe that decisions are best solved and decisions are best made at the local level. So I'd much rather see that money going to states or going to local governmental bodies and the problems being addressed at that level than at a federal level.
We're going to shift a little bit more domestic here. Jason, do you support any legislation on gun rights? Pardon me, do you support any legislation to restrict gun rights? Sorry about that, I said that wrong.
Absolutely not. I'm not sure where Paula stands. I don't want to speak for Paula, but I know, if you look at Bill Enyart and you look at me, I'm by far stronger on the Second Amendment. I believe that the right to bear arms, the Second Amendment, is a profound part of our Constitution for a variety of reasons. I'm a life member of the NRA, a life member of the Illinois State Rifle Association. I'm endorsed by Gun Owners of America. I'm an absolute strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I think it's a right that Americans should hold near and dear to their heart. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that the folks in the state of Illinois are the only state that don't have a right to concealed carry. So I'm a very strong supporter of the Second Amendment, and that's something that we can't overlook. It's a huge issue now and today in the discussions that take place in the town halls around this district.
Paul?
I'm also a supporter of the Second Amendment because I support the entire Bill of Rights. And that's why I'm against the Patriot Act, because that was a broadside attack on the Bill of Rights. So, yes, I'm for the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment.
Do you support cap and trade, and do you believe global warming is man-made?
I do believe that global warming is man-made, and I do not support cap and trade. The world has been using cap and trade for, 15 years now, and we can see that carbon emissions have only increased. Absolutely not do we turn our environment and the health of our planet and our people and everybody, all the other creatures on this planet, over to Wall Street. Are you kidding me? Why would you let Wall Street gamble with the future of our planet?
Jason?
I absolutely oppose cap and trade. I'm glad Paul opposes it. I know Bill Enyart has said on the record that he's interested in cap and trade, and I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Anyone that's in this race needs to understand the absolute devastating effects cap and trade would have on Southern Illinois. And what really frightens me about this administration, Brett, is that if you look at a lot of social issues, things that they can't get done legislatively, things that they lose at the ballot box, they try to use the court system to implement it. They go around the legislative body. They go around the voice of the people. If you look at the fiscal issues, like regulatory issues, like cap and trade, things that they don't get done at the ballot box, things they don't get done legislatively, they try to do it through regulatory fiat. So while cap and trade is a horrible piece of legislation, while it was defeated in the House by 5 votes, we have an administration and their supporters, like Bill Enyart, who are trying to implement cap and trade through regulatory action, and that would be devastating devastating on Southern Illinois, and it's something I will oppose very strongly in Congress.
Is global warming man-made in your opinion?
No, global warming is something that takes place, but as anyone that looks at the data shows, we live in a very robust environment, and just like 20 years ago we were talking about global cooling, I think that we need to really look long-term, and long-term there's folks on both sides of that aisle. I don't think global warming is something that is a major issue in this election. I don't think it's something that is directly man-made. I think that we need to look longer out than 20 or 40 years, and the scientists that have done that have shown that that's not the case.
Paula, you raise your hand. You want to respond?
Yeah, I would just like to say, I don't know what you're talking about. We're talking about global cooling. They did talk about nuclear winter, meaning that if you blew up a bunch of nuclear bombs, it would throw up so much dust that the atmosphere would cool. The only cooling that people talk about with global warming would be if enough ice in Greenland melts that it dilutes the saltwater current that brings the temperate water from the Gulf of Mexico and in the Caribbean up to places like England, that the England and would be thrown into another ice age, and so would the eastern coast of the United States. That's the only cooling. It's not global cooling. It's regional cooling.
No, I mean, not at all. I mean, just like a few years ago, Newsweek had a cover that said, global warming, it's upon us. In the late 1970s, they had a cover that said, global cooling, it's upon us. And the arguments in both for global cooling and for global warming was that they were man-made, and it was because of what we were doing economically. What I would argue is that we live in a very robust environment. It's a cyclical issue. And for those folks that are really concerned about global warming, the problem isn't here in the United States. The problem is overseas and in places like China and the BRIC countries that Paula referred to earlier.
Mr. Plummer, does it make sense to advocate tax cuts to balance the federal budget?
There is definitely an argument there. I mean, look, when you lower taxes on businesses, on individuals, as John F. Kennedy did, as Ronald Reagan did, as a lot of other Republicans and Democrats have done at the federal and state and local levels, you grow the economy. You get more people involved. Instead of having 10.5% unemployment and a tremendous amount of people not involved economically in Southern Illinois, you drive down the unemployment rate. And I would much rather have a huge number of people working, paying lower tax rates and driving revenue to government than a smaller number of people working, paying higher tax rates. And this administration is causing fewer people to work and forcing those people to pay higher rates. I want more people working, paying lower rates.
What do you think? Do you think tax cuts are the way to go? Or?
Well, Jason, it's the same as the audit of the Federal Reserve. This is something that is history. This isn't conjecture. This is history. We've had 30 years of major tax cuts, and we have major unemployment. The businesses that
we
get
haven't
the
had
tax
major
cut.
unemployment.
Just a second,
years.
Paula finished and Jason jumps in.
Well, we've lost union jobs since the 80s. Most of the jobs that have been created in the last 30 years have been lower wage jobs that don't have benefits and don't have like pensions and stuff like that. But in the last 10 years since the Bush tax cuts, which are now the Obama tax cuts, because the Democrats and Obama, extended them in December of 2010, we have had rising unemployment, 50,000 factories moved out of the country. I mean, I don't see how you could say that tax cuts cause higher employment when you can look and see that they didn't.
Jason?
They absolutely do. As I said, if you look at what John F. Kennedy did, he lowered taxes, he put more people back to work, and he almost doubled the amount of revenue to Washington, D.C. If you look at the tax cuts under Reagan, the same exact thing happened. As referred to earlier, Brett said, I always thought the number was 18 million, but if it was only 16.5 million people, Reagan put back to work, those are 16.5 million people that didn't have jobs, that had jobs when Reagan grew the economy. Well, we're in a situation right now where there's absolutely no certainty in direction of the tax code. There's no certainty in terms of the regulatory code. And so there's a tremendous amount of capital that's sitting on the sidelines. And if we explain to people and provide them certainty on a robust, competitive, pro-growth tax code, I can assure you those folks are getting right back to work, and the amount of revenue to Washington will increase.
Paula, real quick, we gotta move on.
I was around in 1981 when the horrible Reagan Depression actually destroyed my entire neighborhood, and everybody there lost their jobs. And so if you're talking about the 16 million people back to work, maybe you're talking about those people that then after a couple of years got their jobs or got other jobs. But there was a horrible depression. Everybody in my neighborhood was the guys were laid off. The women all had to go to work. It was really bad.
Well, there was a horrible depression. His name was Jimmy Carter, and today there's
No,
a
it's
horrible
1981.
recession going on.
But Reagan
And-
took office in 81.
I mean,
and his policies-
Reagan took office in 81. I mean, there was
Okay, you
just
got to
a second, let
remember,
Jason-
Jason.
well, hold
I just
on.
want to say I'm a Green, not a Democrat.
I
Remember
know-
that.
I understand
Yeah.
that, but I'm
Okay,
saying
okay. Let Jason finish here.
I agree, but I mean, those people that were losing their job in your neighborhood in 1981, Reagan took office in 81. He inherited massive interest rates. He inherited high unemployment. He inherited a Carter economy. And when Mitt Romney takes the presidency in January of 2013, he's inheriting the Obama recession, and there's a lot of work to do. And we're gonna.
You know what? It was
tackle
actually 1982. I'm sorry, but I agree that presidents don't necessarily have the ability to, except for FDR, who put 4 million people to work in 2 years. Just messing with tax code has never put anyone to work.
Okay, we gotta shift a little bit. The debate's run out of time, but real quick, Paula, would you support the environment? Would you protect the environment?
Well, of course I would. I'm a Green.
Okay. From people getting well-paying jobs, environment or jobs, what would you pick?
Well, I don't pick environment or jobs. That's what the Green New Deal is about. The Green New Deal is putting people to work, protecting the environment, moving on to a more sustainable future, and giving people good paying jobs. So no, it isn't a dichotomy. This is how you do it. This is how you give people good paying jobs. You rebuild our infrastructure in a more environmentally sustainable way.
Jason?
I don't think a good environment and strong job growth are mutually exclusive. There's no one out there that wants to harm the environment. I know Paula wants to see more people back to work. I know I want to see more people back to work. And I know neither of us want to see the environment damaged. I just don't believe that those are mutually exclusive. I think there's a way to grow the economy, put more people back to work, and keep the environment strong.
Okay, last question of the debate. Both of you guys gave Barack Obama a D grade last debate for his performance as president.
Can I jump in real fast?
Yeah, sure.
Paula gave him a D. I gave him a D. Bill Inyard thought he was doing a pretty good job.
He gave him a B, right?
He gave him a B plus, I believe. Or
That's
B
funny
minus.
because my nephew was going, she's going to give him an F. She's going to give him an F.
You know, but you know, I mean, I just think that shows that Paula comes from a philosophical angle. I come from a philosophical angle. We very strongly agree with the direction that the country's going in right now. We both realize that, unlike Bill Inyard, the jobs environment in Southern Illinois is not getting better, and we need to go after this thing and get it turned around.
Okay, here's my question. Jason first and Paul. What would you give a letter grade for George W. Bush and Bill Clinton?
In terms of their presidential?
Presidential, like what you gave like Obama, what would you give Bush and Bill Clinton?
I'd give them both. If I gave President Obama a D, I would give both President Clinton and both President Bush probably C pluses or B minuses.
Paul?
Not me. Clinton brought in NAFTA. He abolished Glass-Steagall. He bombed Yugoslavia. You know, George Bush rammed through the Patriot Act, attacked Afghanistan, attacked Iraq, ran through the Military Commissions Act. I give him, heck, I'm going to give him Fs.
Both of them? You're going to give Bill Clinton?
No, I'm joking. That was my nephew's joke. No, I'd give him both Ds.
Both Ds, so all of them Ds. We're going to go to closing statements. Paula, you have a minute and 30 seconds to do your closing statement.
Okay. So it should be very obvious that Southern Illinois voters have a real choice this election. A wise man once said, when the last tree is cut, when the last fish are dead, only then will you find out that you can't eat money. So we Greens are frequently criticized for being dreamers, for being idealists, for not living in the real world. According to these critics, the real world is the world of money, profit, real estate speculation, resources extraction, and Wall Street gambling. It's a world in which when the fish are dead and so is the corn, then we can eat money. So you have to wonder, what planet are these people from? I'm from this planet, and I'm a member of the reality-based community. I know that our lives are dependent on the ecosystem of which we are a part. I know that our economy is a subset of the environment and not the other way around. I know that our monetary system is a subset of our economy and should be used to enable exchanging goods and services among ourselves and not to enrich the 1%. By the time we go to polls in November, it will be the time for the yearly ritual when the timeless call for peace on earth, goodwill to men, will be used in advertising to sell commodities. The Green Party doesn't consider peace on earth, goodwill to men to be an advertising slogan, but a call to work for a better world, living in harmony with our fellow humans and the creatures with which we share this beautiful planet. We hope that good people of goodwill will join us.
Jason, your closing statement.
Sure. Well, first, I'd like to thank you, Brett, for hosting this. I really appreciate it. I think it's important that voters know when they go to the polls, as Paula said in November, they know where the candidates stand, and they've had an opportunity to meet them or listen to them or hear them. And I'd like to thank Paula for being here. It's important that we get in front of voters. I tell people all the time.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And I tell people all the time, and I mean this sincerely, and I think Paula would agree. If you're going to ask someone for their vote, you got to get in front of them. You got to let them know where you stand on the issues. And if you're not going to get in front of somebody when you're asking for their vote, what kind of congressman or congresswoman are you going to be? And the fact that Bill Enyart once again doesn't show up to debate is something that frightens me. This district is facing serious problems. Southern Illinois for far too long has been neglected. Washington, D.C. is taking it to Southern Illinois, and I want to win this race and go to Congress so I can take Southern Illinois to Washington, D.C. We've got an unemployment rate in the double digits. We've got a tremendous amount of resources, and we need the public policy that's going to put the people of Southern Illinois back to work. We need the public policies that are going to provide a situation where our families and our communities can grow down here. And most importantly, we need a situation where we send someone to Washington that represents the culture and represents the values of the people of Southern Illinois. And I think I'm the candidate race. I'm a strong Second Amendment guy. I'm a pro-life guy. I'm a low taxes, strong economy guy. And that's the type of values we want in Washington, D.C. from Southern Illinois.
Well, Paula, Jason, I really appreciate you guys being on the show. I appreciate Jim Fishback for letting me use his show time. I appreciate Brian Cheney doing a great job, executive producer. Good luck to both of you guys in the campaign. Thanks for being on. You can follow me at Twitter at Brett M. Bradley, or you could talk to me on Facebook at Brett Bradley. Jason Plummer, you could jasonplummer.com, paulaforcongress.com, correct? paulaforcongress.org. I'm sorry about that.
And then we have a Twitter.
You got Twitter and you guys got Facebook.
Absolutely.
Follow them. Talk to them. They really care. They were here to debate. We appreciate it. God bless you and good luck in the campaign. Thank you.
you.